Anita and Harsh.
Yes.
Hi, Anita.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Paya.
Hi, how are
And
you? I'm
Harsh,
Harsh
I'm fine. I'm
from
fine. How are
NABARD
you?
earlier, ex-chairman of NABARD. Please, Harsh.
Yeah.
Harsh is a free bird.
Yeah, it's relieved.
Yeah, I just became free 3 days ago.
I'm sure he'll be working harder now.
Yes, certainly. I'll be like you both.
Hey, Desh, where are you, Desh?
I'm in Boston.
You guys are safe, no writing?
No, Boston is not bad, but it's amazing what's going on right now.
It's unbelievable. The anger and the writing and the violence. My God.
Yeah. No. It's I think COVID brings out the best and the worst in people, and and so.
It's a simmering problem. I hope they really come together and solve it now. Because police brutality, even in India, the police brutality has been very bad. We have seen police beat up people with lathis. Just go beat up people walking on the streets because they didn't obey the curfew badly.
Yeah.
It is terrible.
No. Yeah. So I guess I'm BG. Should we get going? Is Ajay online, BG? Or
Yes,
if not,
yes, I can see you. Hi,
Hey Ajay, how you doing?
Hi, Ajay.
Hey, you look like you're in Goa somewhere.
Well, I planted a picture of my home in Goa just to remember it.
Oh, I see.
Still in Delhi. Unfortunately.
Well, I think we're going live now. So welcome everybody. Thank you. Good morning. In fact, it's 7:30 in the morning in Boston. So I'm on my first cup of coffee here. And good evening to all of you in India. And, I think today we really want to focus on the Bharat India, meaning there's 1.4 billion people in India, about 300 million live in big cities, and about 1.1 billion live in semi-urban and rural areas. So we really want to focus on opportunities for entrepreneurs. What difference can we make? What are the opportunities to bring about big differences? And this is definitely the time for big differences. I seen changes in my life, but just sitting here in Boston, I mean, looking at what's going on in the US and, in politics and geopolitics and the violence, the strive for equality, everything else. It's just amazing what's going on. And I do feel a little disconnected from India because I haven't been able to travel for the last several weeks. And also there's just so much going on everywhere in the world. So I'm just looking, as much as thousands of other people watching this video, to hear from all the four of you on your perspective in terms of what's going on in India and what are the opportunities and how should the entrepreneurs in this 1.1 billion population think about the opportunities going forward. So we have four eminent people on the panel here. Ajay Chaudhary. Ajay is founder of HCL. He started HCL about almost 4 decades ago when he had a lot more hair. And it's a very, very impressive company, which is worth billions. And right now he supports a lot of he does angel investing and supports a lot of entrepreneurs and also is very, very interested in using technology for improving the masses. We also have Mohan Pai. Mohan, everybody probably sees him on TV every day. Mohan was one of the key people who built Infosys, but I'm even more proud of Mohan being a co-founder of Akshay Patra, which now feeds 1.8 million hot midday meals to school children. Of course, he is also the chairman of Manipal, and now he does a lot of very active investing. And Harsh Bhanewala, Harsh was the chairman of NABARD until about 2-3 days ago. And he is a graduate of IIM Ahmedabad, has a PhD in management. And through his effort, he's brought about a lot of changes in rural India, whether it's cooperative banking or self-help group. And he was one of the longest serving chairman of NABARD. So he probably would have a very good pulse on what's going on in rural India. And Dr. Anita Gupta got a PhD from IIT Delhi. She's been in the government for about 20 plus years. She heads the Innovation Entrepreneurship Program in Department of Science and Technology. And she looks after about 150 different incubators. So she is probably the best person to tell us about what's going on in India. So maybe we'll start by a little bit more of the macro. Mohan, I know you just did a report with Nisha. So tell us a little bit about what did you find when you looked at Bharat India and were trying to put together that report?
Desh, thank you very much. Thank you, folks. Desh, what people say about Bharat in India is very true. Let me give you some data. India is today maybe 35% urban, could be 40%. We were 31% in 2011. And that means about 65% of people are in rural India. And the 65% is around 850 million people. India's GDP today is about $2.9 trillion. And that GDP is about, if you take the entire population, $2,200 odd dollars. And I would estimate this 850 million people have a per capita GDP about $1,000. And the balance 520 million people have a per capita income of about $4,000. The divergence is very wide for a very simple reason. 43% of India's GDP, 15% of India's GDP comes from agriculture, which has 43% of India's people dependent on it. This data is by the World Bank. And the per capita income of people dependent on agriculture is about 56,000 rupees a year, whereas the people depend on industry, which is 25% of GDP, is about 160,000 rupees. And people depend on services is about 220,000 rupees. So the ratio is 1:3:4. So our estimate of about $1,000 per head for 850 million people is fairly accurate. The challenge with people dependent on agriculture who are primarily in the rural areas is agriculture will grow at best 3.5% in GDP in real terms, whereas industry and services could grow maybe 6 to 8%. Services is growing faster than industry, and the income level there will be higher. So the differentiation between agriculture, industry, and services will be very high. And you'll be surprised to know, Desh, that in Karnataka, 35% of people depend on agriculture. That's very important, and they get about 70,000 rupees because Karnataka is much richer than the rest of India. And the people who depend on industry, there is approximately about 25%, and that will be about 60%. And industry, they get about 210,000, and in services they get 350,000 rupees. And Karnataka has got possibly 66% of GDP coming from services and only 10% from agriculture. So 10% of GDP is agriculture in Karnataka, but 35% people depend on it. The income is growing at a 3 level. So the first thing is that the land cannot support so many people for so long. Over the last 15 years, we have seen the people depend on agriculture come down by 1% a year. 15 years back, it was about 60%. It's come down by 1% a year all across. So there is a move for people to move away from agriculture into industry and services. But sadly, India has not built the labor-intensive industries to absorb this massive amount of people leaving the land. If you look at China, Desh, in 1978, when China opened up, what did China do? China gave freedom to its farmers to sell their agriculture crop. They could grow what they want, they could sell. In 15 years, the agriculture output tripled in value. And then they said, you got some capital, and they started small industries in their villages. And then China opened up the coastal district for SEZ, invited foreign capital. And what came first were labor-intensive industries from all around the world, absorbed labor. They used the surpluses to create infrastructure, invested in education, invested in high-tech industries. Now it's a global power. In 1978, the GDP was 150 billion. India was 150. Now they are 15 trillion, and we are 3 trillion. So we have missed the bus, and we are not transition. Our tax laws, our government policies in Delhi incentivize capital-intensive industries in a labor surplus country. So our big challenge is we have a lot of people in the rural areas, majority dependent on agriculture. Agriculture is not going at a pace to give them good living. So we need to change economic policies, create labor-intensive industries, create more urbanization in the 6,000 small census towns. We have 6,000 small census town, 52 cities with a million population plus. China has got 260 cities with a million population plus. China's urbanization is 59%. The world is 52%. So I'll talk about some of the things later, but I just want to give you this macro picture that this is a big issue, that income, they're not able to earn enough income. Whatever they earn is being sucked away, and they perpetually depend upon government for subsidies and for handouts. The government of India and the state government spend something like 6 lakh crores, 6 lakh crores a year on subsidies, water, power, and food, etc., out of which possibly about 4 lakh crores go to the rural areas, maybe 2 lakh crores go to the urban areas. So I'll stop here with this introduction and talk about many policies to remedy that later.
Yeah, yeah. Harsh, are you connected? I see your video is turned off or.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay. So Harsh, I know you look at everything from bottom up. You're very, very familiar with the villages and rural India and so on. And any opportunity for entrepreneurs starts with what is it today and what it can be. How do you see that?
Let me say that, first of all, any entrepreneur who is there has to solve a problem. Unless there is a problem, it doesn't generate ideas to solve it. So, rural India's problems are very many. And some of them are really related to getting connected. Information technology related, outreach related, access related. Today, after the COVID onset, we have seen what cannot be done through digital means. I mean, it's one for one's imagination. Skilling is happening through digital means. Lectures are happening through digital means. Schools are happening through digital means. Bookings, services, all kinds of things are happening through this. So rural India today is not what it was in 1950s. Let me say that. It has a much better infrastructure than what it had earlier. Much better literacy levels. We are the world's highest producer of many of the leading crops. We have nearly 50% of the domestic production, industrial production coming from rural areas. As also the acceptability of the technology is much better today than it was earlier. I think with literacy going up, with money going up, I mean, what Mr. Pai said was that there is disparity in urban and rural, no doubt about it. Between three sectors, per capita income, there is a difference as well. But if you look at the growth has been significant in rural areas also in the per capita income in last a decade or so. And also let me say that agriculture cannot be seen in isolation in India. No, the rural India is so well integrated in itself that if you start tackling one problem of agriculture, there are so many other things which are related to this. And there is a secondary agriculture today, and which is very linked to the agro processing, food processing, the input supply for agriculture. Education in rural areas offers tremendous opportunities. Irrigation, let me say, India is water stressed state country. Not because we receive less rainfall, because primarily it comes in a particular part of the year. Just 3 months we have 1100 mm. And unless we conserve water, unless we know how to be efficient in our irrigation, so the entire agriculture can be technology driven in the times to come. That doesn't mean that people will be losing the employment generation there. No, you require different kind of skill sets to manage agriculture today. For instance, you take agriculture department, Desh. And let me, all the people who are hearing this, agriculture department today is manned by basically people from agriculture. We produced and we took that to the market, whatever we produced. But today the customer in India also wants, they have their own choices, they have their nuances, they have their shades of likings and dislikings. Now, in such a scenario, we have to think in terms of folk to farm. So once you have the folk to farm kind of an approach, that means you are segmenting targets. That means you are also market strategizing yourself. What produce do you do? And COVID has taught us to eat safe, to eat packaged foods. And also, we have seen some of the large supply chains vanishing in the times of COVID. And when this has happened, local people have outreached through technology today. So it's a connection of connecting the people of rural India with the markets in the future.
Yeah. So you see rural India is doing okay, but there's lots of opportunities, lots of problems, and every problem is an opportunity. And we bring multidisciplinary approach to solving problems as opposed to segmenting these. So Anita, I know you're looking after a lot of entrepreneurs, lots of incubators. What are you seeing?
So, Desh, there has been a very positive change and shift in the entire STI, Science, Technology and Innovation landscape, what we have witnessed in the last 2 months or so. DST has emerged as a architect of profound science and relevant innovations with a speed and scale and new delivery models which were unheard of. So the way our decision making has been done and the way we actually try to address this problem collectively as a big force in the S&T domain has been very remarkable. Just to give you an example, immediately in the say 3rd week of March, when we saw the COVID now coming to India, and now this has become a real issue, we try to tackle with the 3 pillars. First was R&D, how we can really orient our scientific researcher community and make them rise to the occasion, and not with the incremental science. It has to be a profound science. And they have to take risks, and they have to take risks at the right time. They don't have to wait. Everything has to be done in a really proactive manner. So in terms of being a receptive to totally proactive, so one pillar was research. Second was obviously startups. So because startups, because of very nature, they can really adapt to and address the kind of problems which India had faced. Quickly, they resorted to doing need gap analysis where the need lies. And many of the startups, I am very happy to share, they quickly, even of lockdown, because of many manufacturing-led startups were closed, production lines were closed. There was a group in IIT Kanpur, I just quote, the way these group work, and many startups were actually pivoted. They utilized their engineering talent, skill set, searched the kind of, you can say, open market solutions which were available through open source, and figured out what could be whether it's a ventilators. See, before March, no PP was produced in India. And now we are second largest producer of PPs worldwide, and 7,000 crore industry has been put up in flat, say, 2 months time. And similarly, the case of diagnostic kits, you talk of disinfectants, sanitizers, new informatics solutions, and therapeutics, vaccine, of course, we are focusing on, it's a little long drawn chain. So our collective network of 152 startups quickly mapped the solutions of COVID-19 startups. And we figured out there are 100 plus easily, which can be mentored, hand-holded, provided the timely seed support. And we were the first in the entire science ministry to come out with a new program. In flat 3 days, we formulated, there was no proposal in place. We really actually initiated dialogue. We were working day in and day out. And the Kavach program was conceived, rolled out in flat 3 days on 31st of March itself. And this has created history, because nowhere in like a Government of India department where there's no proposal in place, you rise to the occasion, address, formulate a program, and release funding. And sign IIT Bombay is the executing arm.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Looks like
and we had created 826 startups through the call of applications. Again, we will be shortlisting top 50 and giving them funding to the tune of 52 crores. This will be in another 2 days or 3 days time. So this has been, I can share, but I think let other speakers also share their piece. And it has been really remarkable journey. And when PM announced the economic package for MSMEs for the Atmanirbhar, the new agenda which has been given, Self-Reliant India, our department, only Kavach program was focused from the ministry, which has 3 departments. So that's why you can say the kind of work we all did, and it will really bear fruits. It will try to address a lot of challenges, and I think startups will be a new force to reckon with. They were earlier also, but they will all are upbeat about that they will be able to navigate this storm through various boats they are sailing in.
Excellent. Looks like you are behaving like a startup yourself, and that's music to the ears of a lot of the entrepreneurs in India to see if you can actually understand their issues and move fast. So Ajay, I think government is trying to help all the entrepreneurs. A lot of the thinkers are coming up with strategies, and they can showcase opportunities, everything else. But one of the big problems is the capability of the entrepreneurs and people and the young people in rural India to be able to absorb or act to this opportunity. And I know you're looking at Skilling India, IT for the masses, and so on. What's a good way to build up that capability?
So actually, I feel that the recent situation of the crop that the rural India has seen will make them quite positive. And there is, to my mind, a pretty good opportunity for Bharat to literally reboot India. And I think that can be done with a lot of innovation and a lot of entrepreneurship. So I think the two are pretty much connected. And I see tremendous opportunities in rural India today. I was actually mentoring a rural distribution company, and they actually reach products to rural India. And what we discovered at that time was pretty much what Dr. Prahlad used to say, is that their ambitions and aspirations are pretty similar to the urban people. And at that particular stage, we were actually, when we went to them, they said they want the latest Apple phones and they want the latest Samsung phones, etc., etc. And that's what we discovered. And then the whole business crashed in the last 3 months. Now, I think I talked to the startup and I said, look, you need to reboot and think about what to do. And so we came up with this whole idea of supplying staples to rural India. And we came up with this whole idea of sending FMCG to rural India. And also, we came up with this whole idea of selling redone phones and redone TVs. Okay, so older phones redone and sold, so that they still meet the aspiration requirement, but come in at a lower price point, which is what will happen today, because everybody will downgrade their buying. Whether it's urban India or rural India, everybody is going to downgrade their buying. So I think that's the kind of opportunity that exists. And therefore, if we go back to the whole issue of what is at the bottom of the pyramid, it all is about affordability, access, and availability. So if you make these 3 things happen, then rural India is a very nice market to be in. And what we did think about is, if we want to reach rural India with the standard e-commerce type model, it won't work. So we came up with this whole idea of doing assisted e-commerce. So a person actually goes there with a phone or a iPad or a tablet and enters the order for the people. And then the whole process starts from the back end, which supplies the product. So, you need to innovate. You need to come up with newer ideas, because you need to connect the village physically as well as digitally. And digitally, it's getting connected. I think a lot of people have bought phones and a lot of people are getting connected. But I see phenomenal opportunities today. And if we look at just COVID, what could be the opportunity? And I feel there could be a great opportunity for hygiene products, because that's something we are all trying to teach them. We are telling them social distancing and a whole bunch of stuff. So many years ago, I remember Lifebuoy had this program called Swasth Chetna. And HUL created that program of washing up well for hygiene. I think time has come for us to take much beyond that. And I think a lot of those products, hygiene type of products, will be very much available, very much required in that market. And I think you could even look at converting the Ashas and the Anganwadis to hygiene workers. And therefore, you could actually end up having a very large force to actually sell these kind of products. So I think it's all about imagination. It's all about the entrepreneur really looking at the holes out there and figuring out what solutions they put in there.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, I think we have 4 eminent speakers on the panel here, but we only have 1 hour, and so time is going to go by really fast. We have used up half of it. So in the next half an hour, let's focus a little bit more on specifics. Any specific ideas that you can give entrepreneurs? You know, obviously, those who are already on the entrepreneurial journey has to figure out how to survive, revive, and then thrive. And then there's a lot of people who are jumping into the game and looking for opportunities. So anything you can be more specific about, what are the things that people can actually do? You know, whether it's a specific government program that they can apply for, or opportunities that you see, would be very helpful for the entrepreneurs. So Mohan, why don't you talk about maybe some of the startups that you're seeing, and how also the success of some of these startups based in a little bit more highly technology based in bigger cities and so on can be leveraged by smaller entrepreneurs in rural India. Mohan, you're muted.
The big problem in rural areas is that farmers are not getting the market price. What we need is agri-tech companies to connect farmers to markets. Today, there are 500 agri-tech companies, and I think many of them are doing a great job. And many of them have grown 5x, 10x in this COVID time, because they understand supply chain, they understand grading, sorting, they understand market prices, and they pay on time. I would like NABARD to set up a 5,000 crore fund to fund 1,000 agri-techs all across India to connect farmers to markets, so farmers can get better prices, prices on time. And government has a policy today of doing away with the restrictions, the Essential Commodities Act, and doing away with forcing them to go to the mandis to sell. I think that is a very big one. So connect farmers to markets through agri-techs and create a fund for that. Second important thing is every taluka, every district is very different in its agricultural component. So we need a differentiated plan which are very close to market. For example, some of them could be high-tech vegetable farms, greenhouses, etc., for export. So we need to create that kind of a plan, and there's a fantastic scope for them. We have an agri-tech company which is the Nilgiris, which is able to sell all the exotic vegetables direct to the market and give the farmers 2x of what they were getting earlier because of higher productivity. The third is the rural areas have got a lot of labor. If you look at labor-intensive industries which require a lot of labor, the entrepreneurs should come and set it up. For example, in Ranchi, the garment industry has taken off because there you pay 8,000 rupees for labor. There's very good wage. In Bangalore, you pay 15,000 is not enough. And Bangalore has 500,000 people in the garment industry. I don't know why it should be in Bangalore. So it can be in the rural areas where it could work. Next is they need a policy from the government for a SEZ for labor-intensive industries. But India has 725 districts. Maybe in 400 districts, you have a list of labor-intensive industries, garments, and then you have light engineering, then you have electronic assembly, and put it there where you require labor. Remember how Apple phone is being assembled in China. So these are all labor-intensive, even though they're getting automated now substantially, we can put it there. And the next issue is developing entrepreneurship. You see, the rural folks don't have the skill. What the Deshpande Foundation has done, we written an article and quoted you, by training young people to be entrepreneurs, especially from the rural area. Why rural area? Because they understand the problem of the rural folk. They know how to sell. They know how to connect. And we need NABARD to create a fund for them. Next point is, we have got about maybe, 10 to 12 million migrants going back now. these migrants are highly skilled people. Now they have worked in urban areas, they worked in many industries, they can go back and start industries. When the British ruled India, after the servicemen, the British soldiers, Indian soldiers finished the term, they went back to the villages and became leaders. Why? They were trained, they were disciplined. So we got a huge number of people. We need a 1 lakh crore program under, 1 lakh crore program under NABARD or the banks to give them money to become entrepreneurs so they could start small businesses which could help. Skill development program for entrepreneurs. Because in many of the rural areas, there are handicrafts, there are handlooms and many things else. But we need to set up design centers, 3D printing and all the nice stuff and connect them to markets through e-commerce. And the next thing which is very, very important is to make sure that, in the rural areas, we help build infrastructure, housing, etc. So I do believe there are a lot of things for entrepreneurs to do. The money is available. Government is pumping in money. But if we don't have enough entrepreneurs to take that money, capital, and do that. For example, Avishkar Fund, Vinay Rai, Avishkar, he's done a remarkable work. Why can't we have 25 Avishkars in India? Why can't we have 25 Vinay Rais in India who will fund these enterprises? The problem with entrepreneurs in the rural areas is people will say the price point is low, we need capital. So we need NABARD to set up like the MSMEs have done, a 50,000 crore fund to fund entrepreneurs in many areas over the next 5-10 years. Take the big break, and I think it will work. So I think all these industries are coming together, and the next big growth area is there because they suppress demand. But the suppressed demand is at a low price. And for the price to go up, income levels must go up. For the income levels to go up, first farmers have to be linked to market. Today, farmers get 20 to 50% of what they produce. They must get at least 40 to 60% of what they produce. If the surplus money comes in, there'll be enough capital, consumption power, and I think we can see something else. So entrepreneurship is the key, coupled with capital and skill development, like the kind of program we've done in Deshpande Foundation.
Thank you, Mohan. Harsh, looks like NABARD pops up in every conversation. So maybe you can talk about it. Now, what I've seen is that, the last 15 years that we worked in Hubli and surrounding rural areas, I think we get praised quite a bit for what we've done, but it's so minuscule compared to what needs to get done. For example, we do these farm ponds, dig a hole 100 feet by 100 feet by 10 feet, and it's enough to irrigate farm 5 acres of land, doubles, triples the income. We've done about 5,000 of those, but now we want to do 100,000, which would be a 750 crore project. But somehow there's a big disconnect as soon as you start scaling these things. So number one, showcasing success, like wherever it's happening, so that other people can copy it and do it in a big way. And then thinking about scale, where we can get the mainstream banking or bigger funding and so on, and connect it back to where the good opportunities are. I know you've done quite a bit over the last 6 years at NABARD, but how do you see that going forward? How should we be thinking about it?
I personally feel the opportunities are tremendous in rural areas. And first statement right outly, I would say that you need 10 NABARDs to solve the kind of investment required in rural areas. That doesn't mean that I'm not saying we are not capable of doing it. What we are saying is we have built models for process deliveries. For instance, we conceived of self-help group program, wherein the people learn to do self-help and take their initiatives forward. Some of them have become now small entrepreneurs. In fact, let me say, most of the masks sold by most of the bigger, be it Amazon, be it others, the masks in the COVID times were, many of the places were given by the self-help groups in the country, the women in the self-help groups who were doing the tailoring, etc., knitting, etc. Now, we have tried to, we gave the concept. Now we have tried to digitize this. We have already digitized 6 lakh groups. And 6 lakhs group out of nearly 1 crore groups in the country with a connection of around 12 crore households would mean close to nearly, I would say 70% of the rural population being covered through this program. Now, this requires total transformation in terms of their accounts being kept on digital platforms, they being linked to a portal, the portal having access to market, to banks. I think all those things we have started. So application of IT will give scale, which you saying, Desh. I think we have to use IT applications to solve the problems in a simplified process form, as also to ensure better outreach and connectivity to the producer as well as to the consumers. I think the 2 or 3 other things which NABARD has done, for instance, we have nearly 85% of our 14 crore households who are farmers are small and marginal farmers. Now, these small and marginal farmers, they do not, their asset base, if you look at the mechanized asset base of Indian agriculture today, is very low compared to other countries. Now, can we offer a different model? Now, this model could be not owning an asset, but acquiring services out of combined a pool of assets by a lot of entrepreneurs. That is one area which I see would certainly get. So this would be something similar to like number of workshops, number of service centers at many places, distributed all over the country, as also I would say that Uberization kind of thing, as per the demand, they meet through IT platforms the requirement of these people. Now the market, traceability is one aspect which is there, which everybody wants today in the foreign market, be it the domestic market also. We moved away from food security to food diversity. And food diversity requires various testing apparatus to be put up across the country. I've tied up recently with the Andhra and Telangana government that, yes, I give money to them at very cheap rates to the governments, and every district and every block, they should have a testing laboratory. Now, this testing laboratory, if people are able to use, and if there is a spectrometer, there are at least 2 or 3 entrepreneurs I know, the quality after testing can be exactly put up, giving the profile of the produce, picture of the produce, and it goes to a foreign market or even a domestic distant market, and one realizes a much better value, what Mr. Pai was saying, 2x, 3x, whatever. Now, these kinds of opportunities for linking folk to the farm would ultimately mean that we create infrastructure, physical infrastructure near to the farm gate, as also make the supply chain more efficient for reducing costs and also enhancing farm. For instance, we have Amul. Amul is one which is a cooperative, which has been highly efficient institution. Nearly 70%, 65 to 70% of the realized income from the market goes to the farmers. Who else is giving this much? So we don't need just entrepreneurs who are there to make fortune. Probably if that is the case, then Bharat is not the real example. You need to have little deeper pockets. You need to move in a sustainable manner, win the faith of the people. I think the kind of base we have, kind of the upscale you will have, will be unparalleled in the world. I think the opportunities lies. I mean, I would say partly disagree with Professor Prahlad Kakkad, who said that fortune lies at the bottom of pyramid. I would say that sustainability lies at the bottom of pyramid.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think by using these business practices, we can bring a lot of change for very little money, as opposed to, the fortune is always with the people who have high margin, a lot of money. But if you really want to make a big difference in the world, then you go to the NABARD clients. So thank you. So Anita, I know you have a lot of programs. So are there specific programs that entrepreneurs are not aware of that they should be tapping into what you have?
So Desh, going forward, see, lockdown has given all sort of a new vistas of opportunities. So now the entrepreneurs, the startups have to really not only leverage the opportunity, but they have to create new opportunities. As said by some of the sectors like hygiene could be a focus area. Just to cite an example, one woman entrepreneur who had created a machine for sanitary napkins has pivoted, and she has redesigned her machine, which can offer a mask, 3-layered mask at a cost of, as a price point of ₹2. So these are the new solutions. And going forward, as I said, we have to now, since vaccine is not in near sight, these are uncertain times. So we have to start living with the COVID. So living with the COVID, new world order is being set. Everyone has to press the reset button, be it government, be it startup or organization. So it's a new reset being set, and where we are all in the process of reinventing, revisiting, repurposing ourselves. So in that scenario, we have to really look for what startups will be requiring. Of course, adaptation to new skills, new work culture. And lockdown has really provided that with a fewer resources, you can really deliver. You don't require much of resources to carry out a set of objective or certain goal. So this is would be a game changer going forward. We call it LSE, life after COVID. So we have to really design various models in the COVID era, after COVID era. Also, actually demarketing the Indian whole landscape, be it rural, semi-urban, and urban. So different models will be required. Of course, in rural, everyone has talked about. I was surprised to see the consumption of internet was 10 times more in rural areas than the urban areas in these days, some of the days. And this is a huge revelation. That means technology, the digitization has been so pervasive in the rural areas, and this is a very positive sign going forward, imparting all sort of e-skills to entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, be the new set of population who have actually now gone back to their native places. What are the avenues? How do we train them and give them self-employment opportunities? So mapping of each district, say, if anyone takes up the responsibility, say 739 or 737 districts are there. So we have to really plan a big roadmap going forward to cover all the districts, whereas DST will be leading the forefront of high-tech led startups. Also, I could figure out, like, in near term, 3 or 4 major areas where startups will be focusing on. Obviously, first is the healthcare. We have got enough knowledge, experience of startups. Are collectively, we have mapped all Government of India departments. There are 2,000 startups in the healthcare domain. They will be needing going forward.
Healthcare is a big segment.
Yeah, healthcare is identified because any case we have to be self-reliant in majority of things we never focused on. No one thought of the low-cost invasive ventilators, PPEs, and so all these the COVID has given new set of opportunities we are doing. But problem is, see, obviously, ease of doing business. Obviously, we need to focus on to across all 3 models, be it rural, urban, semi-urban. That should be.
So Anita, I think entrepreneurs will probably reach out to a lot of your incubators and so on. So Ajay, why don't you briefly tell us a little bit about some of the exciting startups you're working with that you think other people can look along similar lines?
I'd rather talk to you about some other things, because I feel that a lot of my startups that are there are pretty much in the urban domain. Only the one I talked to you about was very focused on the rural domain. And since today is talking about Bharat, I'd rather sort of, if you don't mind, talk about the Bharat area and what are the opportunities, because you felt that, we should try and tell entrepreneurs where are the opportunities in Bharat. So I think I'm deeply involved with skilling, and I'm also chairman of the Electronic Skills Council. So we've been also looking at how to pivot. And we also decided to pivot to COVID and decide what are the opportunities during COVID. So I think the first thing that we realized is what Mohan was mentioning about these migrants returning to the villages. And if migrants are returning, what should we do with them? How can we get them to create micro entrepreneurship pieces, which would be of great value? So we started then to see how could we retrain them. And we took a view that if we could create a whole bunch of digital home technicians in each village, they could actually repair everything electronic in the village, which will be something like a rural clap rather than an urban clap, that kind of integration. All right, so that could be one interesting opportunity, and we could train them and get them to do it and teach them entrepreneurship in addition. Then there is a lot of work going on solar in the rural areas. So we could also create solar people, solar technicians. And then there is a requirement for clean water. So around clean water, there can be very nice opportunities for creating water ATMs and things like that. So, these are the kind of things that we were thinking of when migrants return, because they are more advanced than when they actually left. So I think they can actually be taught to do a whole bunch of new stuff. The other big opportunity, as Anita said, was healthcare. And in healthcare, I think the biggest piece that's going to happen and is already starting to happen is this whole issue of telemedicine. Okay, telemedicine has been all kinds of pilots all over the country for many, many years. It's never been successful. But I think now the opportunity for all kinds of people to actually go after telemedicine and small health centers, which could actually connect in between the district centers and the hospitals. So there is this nice opportunity that is sitting for entrepreneurs to actually use advanced telemedicine centers, because till now telemedicine was a screen with a doctor. No longer should we think of a screen with a doctor. We should think of devices attached to the screen, which will actually check everything for the doctor, and then doctor can take a decision on what to prescribe. Okay, so we need to look at more advanced type of opportunities in telemedicine. I think that will be a very interesting, large area for entrepreneurs to look at. And another area that I would like to suggest is that there's a very interesting phenomena happening in the US today. You know that, Desh. Facebook is telling all its employees, 50% will be working from home. Okay. Now, when Facebook said 50% will be working from home, they had a very interesting thinking that those 50% will be in locations which are much cheaper than the valley. And so they're not going to pay the valley salaries, they're going to pay the Atlanta salaries or whatever. Okay. So here is a very new phenomena of a new America, which will compete with the BPO and IT of India. Because suddenly you will have a lower cost people who have lost many jobs in America starting to look at BPO as a career. And we have to compete with them. So how do we compete with them? The way to compete with them would be for us to go rural and set up a whole bunch of multi-layered stack-based solutions for BPO, in which case data entry can be done at one location, checking can be done in another location, and etc., etc., etc. So here is a really nice, large opportunity. If we actually capture it early, we'll be able to compete with the US a whole lot better. So I think there are a lot of such interesting things that could be done by entrepreneurs to look at utilizing what is available in rural India. And one last thing I want to mention is that voice is going to play a huge role in rural. So till now you had, entry-based commerce. Now you should have voice-based commerce in multiple languages. So whole bunch of chatbots and whole bunch of multilingual chatbots, and this kind of work has to be done by entrepreneurs to actually get to this market through voice rather than either direct entry into a computer.
No, that's very exciting, because I think on one side you have technology ideas, on the other side you have the need. So if you can bring them together, there's lots of opportunities. So, what are the three characteristics that I see of entrepreneurs is, number one, that grit to make things happen, and ability to take pain, because whenever you start a journey, it's very painful and you have to go through that pain. Another one is to make do with what you have. It's not like a typical MBA who says, I'll come up with a big strategic plan. You give me all the money and the time, I'll make it happen. You have to make do with what you have. And then, of course, you need the skill and access to technology and so on. So Mohan, women excel in those things. They know how to take pain. They know how to multitask. They know how to make do with what they have. How do we encourage more entrepreneurship among women?
Desh, first we have to give women the confidence that they can achieve something. most women in rural areas from a limited knowledge and coming to your place when I see the transformation, they lack the self-confidence that they need to take the risk. They're risk takers like men, but they lack the self-confidence because of the social upbringing and how they're treated in society. So I think it's very important for, education of young women to come. I studied higher education data for the last 15 years, and I find a very remarkable thing that wherever literacy has gone up, higher education has gone up, the girl child has gone to college, fertility has come down dramatically. Dramatic, 30% in a decade for the Muslim community, for instance, who are far behind everybody else. So I think the important thing is to make sure that we have better education. And second, training. For example, the girls that come to Deshpande Foundation in 6 months are very different, right? So we have to give them training. And the third, we have to teach them a bit of finance and give them some capital. Now, everybody requires capital, and we got to give them the risk capital and tell them, you go try, it doesn't matter if you lose. It's not like a debt, because they're very scared. Women are scared to take debt than men, because, they will not go away. They'll be there and they always pay back. They sacrifice everything else. So we got to create capital structures. We got to create training structures and leave it to them. And I think over a period of time, they'll come. Like Banatwala said, the self-help group, they're all women. Most of them are women, and they're done remarkably well. But it's taken 10, 15, 20 years for all the things to come and for a generation of women to come up. It's taken 25, 30 years for the women panchayat members to come up now to be nearly independent and stand up and speak, because the social factors against them. So I think education, skilling, training, and high quality institution like yours with a little bit of capital is required to give them the exposure and enable them to go try many things that they can do. Remember, in your last big conclave, we came about a woman who started an enterprise, and she was a soldier's wife, and she came and did well, but it took her a lot of time, right? Because she had to struggle with no capital, with the things going down and everything else. So I think we got to create this kind of a framework. Now I think with technology, it becomes much more easier because you can do offline, online, and everything else. And I think those are the key. We need a holistic program based around the women, focus on education, training, and capital.
Harsh, I know you work quite a bit on this self-help group, and we've seen a lot of women in rural India. What are some of the examples of how they've excelled? For example, what was heartwarming was for example, engineering schools in India. There's more women in qualifying for engineering than men. And this almost looks like India needs to put quota on the women, right? So when they give an opportunity, they can do better than men. Have you seen examples like that apart from self-help group?
Absolutely. I would totally agree with you. If the opportunities and what Mr. Pai was saying, if those kinds of all capital, sense of security, confidence, education, skilling if all this happens, women perform much better. I'll give you one or two examples. The entire watershed campaign that we ran in the Northeast, Cherrapunji goes dry, the highest rainfall area. I know in certain months you have no water to drink. So the women have done well there in terms of, look at Chipko movement, entirely led by women, not just self-help groups. I'm saying in the modern sense also, the entire horticulture, vegetable production in many states is basically handled by the women. And also market is mostly by women in eastern and eastern and northeast India, if you look at that. Now, in addition to that, I would say that many of them have also turned to entrepreneurship. Now, NABARD has started sanctioned 2 incubation centers to one Tamil Nadu Agriculture University at Madurai and at Hisar. So we have seen now some women entrepreneurs coming forward. And that's a very encouraging sign. And they are coming, many of them were already SHG leaders. In terms of whatever they had excelled in the self-help group program, they're coming from there. Further, in rural artisans, handicrafts, etc., I think they have a sizable craftsman, upmanship over men in some of the trades. So I feel that's one area where women have done well. And I would also agree the hygiene products, especially I've seen many of these groups now coming out with excellent sanitary napkins for themselves. They don't rely on outside. Many of them are also handling the medicines for their own use. The home consumption for tea, coffee is handled by them. So I'm finding many of them moving to those areas. And I think technology, IT in particular, is making their jobs simpler because they can work from home at any time. Earlier we had this big challenge. I've seen bank sakhis in banking financial services. If you look at the banking correspondents are applied, the average wage is around 5,000 a month, 5 to 7,000, which goes to a bank. There could be some who would be getting 10,000, 12,000, 20,000 also, but average is this. Now, we found out in certain areas, bank sakhis do excellent job. These SHG trained women, financial discipline, social discipline, economic understanding, financial acumen. Now, if they acquire all this, they did very well even in 3,000, and they run into the kitchen of the house. They go to they go and talk to the women straight away. So financial services, I see a larger role to be played by the women, and because the untapped segment, the unreached unreached population, which is only just starting with this government. Lots of Jan Dhan accounts have been opened. So many women have come into the fold, but they have diverse financial needs. I think a woman understands the better another woman who requires different kind of financial services, which are related to his household, to her household, to her own self, to their children, etc. I think I see a larger role for them for health services in rural areas, financial services in rural areas, as also education services in rural. If you look at the primary schools today, Desh, the majority of teachers in semi-urban and in many rural areas are basically women.
Yeah.
So I think if we can provide them a bit of soft training in all these three areas, as also a little bit of advanced training through reskilling for various financial products, etc., as also for health testing, etc., I think they can play a larger role in rural areas in transforming the services to these three sectors, at least immediately.
Yeah. No, that's very very encouraging. So Anita, I know you mentioned some women entrepreneurs. What are you seeing?
So I was just taken to the other side. Like, we focus on 3-4 programs where we tap women entrepreneurs. Largely, they are technology-led entrepreneurs. Although their numbers are very few, it's less than 10%. But the quality of their startups, the idea they are addressing, and I could see the confidence and the passion is so infectious. More than the you can say the male counterpart. So this is a really welcome change. And if you go by the profile, these are largely engineers with a good amount of domain experience who have ventured at the age of, say, mid-30s or late 30s, and where the probability they have really carved out need and the opportunity, you can say, translation. These are someone from Texas Instruments or from ISC, IAMS, IIT. So that force is really, actually, they have pushed they opted out of the campus placement, crores of salary. They are working for India specific problems. I know one I led a delegation to Israel recently, a couple of months back, all women led. They were all nurtured in NSR cell, IIM Bangalore. And the startups being education, agri, cybersecurity. There are hardly 150 startups in cybersecurity, and this particular startup actually was successful in collaborating with the Israeli counterparts. Israeli startups, they don't collaborate as such until they see real value in collaboration. So some of these startups in 2-3 years in the cosmetic domain, the sugar cosmetics, Vinita Singh has a 100 crore company in flat 2 years. So that's the journey. And if you see the backward integration, the kind of jobs they are providing, they are actually new change agents in the whole startup landscape. Yeah. And new role models are emerging. We see and we get inspired. There's an entrepreneur in Pune. She's hardly 23 years. She calls herself as an astropreneur. So she's only focusing on astrology. So you name a domain, you will find a woman be a change agent in a variety of areas. And as rightly said, that since women in SHG and all, they really show the credit worthiness is so great. And in terms of the repayment, so these are some of the factors we need to really tap on and try to really handhold, create new mechanisms of nurturing those kind of women entrepreneurs. I think going forward, then Bharat, India will be a new India for sure. And just highlight one more thing. Going forward, as everybody knows, in the coming months, we have two distinct forces in the world. One is China and rest of world. So where actually manufacturing is global supply chain is will be disrupted from China to great extent. I think India has a greater opportunity to leverage that opportunity. We need to clearly figure out what kind of sectors in manufacturing we should focus on. How many entrepreneur startups and AI and automation, digital factory would be the new norms we need to focus on. And AI, fortunately, DST has embarked on two ambitious missions. One is cyber physical systems, and also in recent budget, quantum technology and applications. So going forward, I think these kind of cutting edge technologies, integration of AI,
will open up a lot of opportunities.
AI, a lot of opportunities are actually knocking the doors. We really need to create good models. And one last point I need to highlight, what we are doing, we are supporting startups, the missing piece in the whole innovation value chain, because the you can say the chain is as strong as the weakest link. So we do have weakest link. One is biggest industry connect. We have so many industries, but like until they connect with the industry, prepare a model which is win-win for both of them. Going forward,
hopefully all your incubators will play a key role. In
so we are working on that model. We have started dialogue with the industry champions. I think that will be a focus area, be it in manufacturing, healthcare, education, or agri. So all we want good industry connects.
Ajay, your thoughts?
I'd like to sort of end with saying something which I pretty much believe in. I work for an NGO called Population Foundation of India. And for many, many years, our whole focus has been around women's health. And I think that is much more important today if we really want to sort of unleash the potential of women. And if we really want to do it well, we need to, free them up. Today, India is 135 in 137 countries in women empowerment. That's really where we sit. So I think huge amount of work needs to be done if you really want to unleash that power in the rural area. And that power is just sitting for us to be actually taken up. So I think you may come up with a whole bunch of strategies, but unless we really pay a lot of attention to women's health, they are not going to leave their home to do something. So I think that's really where a lot of work needs to be done. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs could pay a lot of attention beyond what we do as an NGO. And I think what we have seen is that what we have done for that whole market is that we created what is called a tool for social transformation. And this tool that we used was fundamentally edutainment. And we actually created a TV serial, which is called Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hu. The whole idea was to unleash their potential of women. Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hu was the whole concept. And around that, we did TV in multiple languages. We did radio in multiple languages. We did social media. We actually created a English chatbot. We also did community outreach. So all out of that work that we did in the last 5 years, we've really seen that it actually generated and triggered positive change in knowledge, in attitudes, practices, and what is now needed is habits. So I think this is an area that we want to really partner with the government in doing something much more around this. We did partner with the government in the last serial that we did, where we brought in the whole issue of Swachh Bharat into it. And Swachh Bharat finally leads to having a good home at home and in the village and keeping it clean. And if you keep it clean, your health improves. So at the end of the day, I clearly, solidly believe that women's health needs to be given a lot of importance. And there is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to work there and create strategies to achieve that. and also create alternate models for them to then grow out of the home into an entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. I know each one of you have so much to share and offer. We probably should have done 1 hour with each of you as opposed to putting all the 4 of you together in 1 hour. But I want to, we're coming to a close now. So I do want to give all of you an opportunity to say something succinctly inspiring. But before that, I do want to thank CM Patil, the CEO of Deshpande Startups in Hubli, now called Hubli. And the Hubli incubator, it's a 100,000 square foot incubator, very aspirational, and it's really focused on the 1.1 billion people. And we really want to make it not just the largest, but one of the best incubators for entrepreneurs aspiring to make a difference for the 1.1 billion. We work very closely with the DST, with NABARD, with super mentors like Ajay and Mohan. And so I think this is really, we want to invite all the leading entrepreneurs who want to make a difference to 1.1 billion to our incubator in Hubli. We have access to farmers, villages, students. So anytime you have any idea that you want to test out, we have a ready market for you and a ready ecosystem that can really help you and also provide you some money. So I think what I want to do is to give each of you an opportunity just to speak for about a minute or so and leave our entrepreneurs with some inspiration for why should they be all excited about being an entrepreneur? Because I think we have a lot of questions streaming on the chat, but we won't have enough time to address them. But would love to hear your last thought in terms of why should entrepreneurs be excited? So maybe we'll start the other way around. Ajay, your last thoughts.
Well, actually, as you rightly said, it's not about fortune alone. And I think it's also about giving back. So entrepreneurs who actually look at this whole market should definitely look at how do I give back and how do I create? And how do I look at the aspirations of people? And, I've had this strong belief always about entrepreneurs that they should not just, they should not worry about resources. They should have that aspiration to succeed. And I have this formula, which I call A is greater than R. So if A is the aspiration, R is the resource. Your aspiration, if it's high, resources happen. So I think I would like to encourage entrepreneurs to forget about saying, "Mere paas paisa nahi hai, ye nahi hai, wo nahi hai." I want to do something. I want to do something for Bharat, and I'm going to do it. And I should go very determined in thinking like that, rather than worrying about a whole bunch of resources that I need.
Yeah, I think Sam Pitroda always talks about this. He says, last 50 years, we've done a lot of entrepreneurship, everything else. We solved the problems of all the rich people. The rich people really don't have any problems anymore. Not those many anyway. So we make up fake problems to solve and create startups. Instead of that, we really should focus on the real problems, and that way we can create a future. So Anita, your final thoughts.
Yeah, so having actually seen the journey in last 20 years, the way India has evolved in terms of startups and entrepreneurship, now incubators also need a new avatar. They need to be reframe themselves, and completely from the incubation, they should be a ready launchpad for startups. So what is all required to be a quick launchpad for startups, one-stop shop, all those needs, they need to really work on that. And also what I feel that if each successful startups take the responsibility of entering at least 5 different startups as a, you can say, role model, because until they hear the real stories, simple giving them training will not work. So each, see, everyone has to give back. So if we create that pool of startups who in turn become a new force of change agents, inspiring others, be it women entrepreneurs, we need to create a new set of role models in every walk of life, in each and every sector. I think this will be a huge driving force for new set of youth, talented people from all walks of life to join entrepreneurship to be a part of the new movement, which we are aspiring as a new Bharat going forward, providing opportunities. So we really need to think differently going forward. Old systems, old way of working, old mindset will not work. Everyone has to create a new mindset going forward to create a new and better model of new India. So that's my take.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being that change agent in Delhi and in the government, and we really appreciate, and we have really enjoyed working with DST. So
thank you.
Harsh?
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would say 2-3 things are very important for an entrepreneur in India. Your determination has to be very strong. Procedural things shouldn't bother you. I mean, even if they bother you, they shouldn't deter you. That's what I would say. The system is improving, and that the new government, many of the earlier laws have changed, many of the new institutions have come, reform agenda is on the top of the government's programs. So things are certainly changing. First of all, be optimistic, even if you have facing some problems. Secondly, problems are very many in rural India or Bharat, and नए भारत को जगाना है. So I feel, I mean, you can start from whatever is the area which is close to your heart. So, I mean, I see a scale in it coming up. Thirdly, I would say that the funding opportunities, a lot of new funding opportunities are getting created in India. A lot of new fund of funds in SIDBI. NABARD has its own NAB venture. I think we've committed upfront some money for certain collectivization efforts. There is separate fund available. And I think we are likely to work along with the state governments. Some of the state governments are coming forward to give a push to the startups. They are creating their own funds in sync with us, be it farmers, producers, organizations, etc. Tamil Nadu government has taken leads. Others are also in the pipeline. Lastly, I would say we need strong team of mentors. Aadmi toot jata hai, to move on that. I read a book sometimes back, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. No, how can one be so foolish all the time? So, somebody has to be mentoring them. I think Deshpande Foundation is playing a big role. I think you cannot just be a standalone incubator now. You have to convert yourself into a mother incubator. And also think of training several chain of incubation centers across the country, not just at a standalone Deshpande Foundation in Hubli. I must compliment you for the kind of work you have done, and Mr. Patil also have done, and for today's seminar as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Mohan, your final thoughts.
Desh, I would think that if any young person wants to change the world, he wants to see high growth, and he wants to make an impact, it'll happen in Bharat. Because Bharat is almost like semi-virgin territory for everybody to come. And now the stars are all aligned to give high growth and high impact. Because the money is flowing in, the policies are in place, the structures are in place, and there's hunger in rural areas for growth and the right business opportunity for entrepreneurs. The urban areas are crowded, and there's too much of competition. In the rural areas, you can grow very fast, and there are extraordinary entrepreneurs coming up. So I would tell entrepreneurs, look at Bharat for now. That's where the future is.
No, I agree with you. I left India in 1973. And I remember coming back to India in 80s when Infosys was very small. And whenever there would be a gathering for entrepreneurs, everybody in Bangalore, Mumbai, they would all say, hey, how does this happen in America? What is happening there? Venture capital, all that kind of stuff. But now, actually, it's the other way around because most of the entrepreneurs get excited about making a difference. And you can make a difference when there are problems. And so a lot of the entrepreneurs that I see at MIT and Harvard and all this stuff, they're all like trying to do these apps, and their biggest challenge is trying to convince you that it's something that's actually meaningful, that actually it'll do something, right? And fortunately in India, entrepreneurs don't have that issue. I mean, there's so many meaningful problems that they can work on that the payback is immediate, both in terms of emotional payback and the financial payback. That is, I think there is no fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, but it's a big fortune for the people at the bottom of the pyramid.
Absolutely.
So what I find is that we can always have a MIT, Stanford, Harvard guy come and spend, 10 years in India and try to help. And for him, it's a big sacrifice. But when you take a kid from rural India and create that opportunity for him, it's not a sacrifice. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Upliftment.
So we need to really, really build that capacity and capability within those communities to actually come up and take this challenge up. And it's an opportunity. It's not really a sacrifice. And those of us who can should just give a lending hand. That's all we can do. We really cannot solve the problem because none of us are really capable of doing that. So I want to thank you all. I think something like this would not have been possible without COVID, actually. And it's amazing. I know each one of you is super busy now because you can't even escape a request by saying, no, I'm not in town or I'm not.
Excuses don't work
I
anymore.
find that I'm working harder than I ever have. And so, but thank you for making the time and really appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch. I know we have a lot of questions from entrepreneurs streaming. So what I would encourage all the entrepreneurs is to send your questions to CM Patil, and CM Patil can then forward the questions to all the panelists and get their answers for you. So thank you very much, and really appreciate all of you being available. Thank you.
Thank you, Desh. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Anita.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Mohan.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. It's a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.